Hello everyone! The time has come. Let's talk about 1955's Day the World Ended, produced and directed by Roger Corman. When the world is destroyed by nuclear war, 5 survivors descend on a house that is sheltered from the radioactive winds. It's the home of a man and his daughter who have been preparing for a scenario like this, but he's stored provisions for 3 people, not 7. As the weeks pass, tension simmers within the group, but there's no escape. The surrounding hills are steaming with radioactive vapor. Anything that ventures out gets contaminated, and with contamination comes mutation. It's the middle of the atomic age. In film and literature, cautionary tales abound about the continued development of nuclear weapons and the irreversible consequences of their usage. Some stories are fantastical, employing aliens or monsters to warn the public, like in 1951's The Day the Earth Stood Still or 1954's Godzilla. Others are more realistic and psychological, focusing on the desperate plight of the remainders of the human race, like in 1951's 5 or 1959's The World, the Flesh, and the Devil. Day the World Ended combines both approaches. You have personal drama between the cooped-up survivors of a nuclear holocaust trying to figure out what comes next, and you have a monstrous being spawned by intense radiation exposure. The correct title, by the way, is Day the World Ended, not The Day the World Ended. There is a 2001 movie called The Day the World Ended. It's not related. The screenplay was written by Lou Rusoff, who wrote several Corman films, including It Conquered the World in 1956. Within the past couple years, I've reviewed that and some other Corman-directed, low-budget, black-and-white sci-fi horror movies, which has been a ton of fun and surprisingly illuminating, though some of you may scoff at that. I've put links to these videos in the description if you'd like to check them out. Lou Rusoff also produced the chilling 1962 Ray Milland film Panic in Year Zero, which has a very similar apocalyptic premise to Day the World Ended. I'd seen Day the World Ended once before, probably, 15 years ago, and I recall feeling so-so about it back then, but I enjoyed it more this time. I have much more experience with this kind of movie now. I appreciate this kind of movie now when it's not just completely awful. And even when it's completely awful sometimes, there are redeeming qualities. And I would even go so far as to say I think that this is a superior Corman film from this period. The script more or less makes sense, the story has natural pacing, the characters are pretty well rounded, the makeup and the effects aren't embarrassing, and the set decoration isn't plain or cheap, with the exception of these glitzy curtains, which I don't think fit the house at all. This one's not as fun as some of the others. It's not an offbeat black comedy, it doesn't have bizarre non-sequiturs, it's not hilariously bad at any point, and I do kind of miss that. In being more competent, taking itself more seriously, and I suspect having a larger budget, it ends up lacking some of the oddball charm of its more slapdash successors. But that's not to say it doesn't have some of its own quirks. Not including any mutants they encounter, the movie has just 7 characters: Jim and his daughter Louise, Rick the geologist, Tough Guy Tony and his girlfriend Ruby, Gold Miner Pete with his donkey Diablo, and the injured Radek. The cast is led by Richard Denning as Rick, that's easy to remember, and some of you may have already noticed he has his sleeves rolled up in all of his scenes. Of arms and the man I sing. Even though I knew it was coming, it was still a shock just how much arm exposure there is. I didn't remember that it was the entire movie. This is a gun show masquerading as a motion picture. He enters the movie with his sleeves rolled up, 'cause it's hot out there, you know, and twice I caught him adjusting them, as if they started to roll down and he was like, oh, nope, can't have that. The new arrivals are instructed to wash up and change into the others' clothes. So Ruby dons one of Louise's dresses, which fits even though they're clearly not the same size, and the men raid Jim's wardrobe. We can see from Tony's choice, he even calls attention to it by complimenting Jim's taste, that there were short-sleeved shirts available. But of course, Rick goes for the longer-sleeved option, and then stands there, rolling them up, ever so slowly. I had already wiggled my eyebrows at my mom, but then when this happened, I was like, okay, this almost feels indecent. All kidding aside, this is a good movie for Richard Denning fans. Rick is one of his most likable sci-fi characters, a geologist who happens to have specialized in uranium exploration. He's a good guy, intelligent, heroic, and honorable. Corman regular Paul Birch plays Jim, the Navy captain turned prepper, and Laurie Nelson plays his anxious daughter Louise. He's a protective and affectionate father who's not afraid to do what's necessary to ensure their safety and survival. But he's also the one who's like, well, the girls are gonna have to start having kids as soon as possible. I couldn't believe it when, just a few weeks into the apocalypse, he goes to Louise and is like, do you like Rick? Do you think you could marry Rick? I want you to marry Rick next week. What the heck, Dad? Causing friction immediately upon arrival is Tony, the gun-toting hotshot played by Mike Connors. He's accompanied by his devoted stripper girlfriend Ruby, played by Adele Jurgens, but he pushes her aside and becomes obsessed with wholesome Louise, even though Louise wants nothing to do with him. To some viewers, this plotline may seem to dominate the film, and I agree it does take over at times. But one thing I appreciate is that Tony is the only one who's jealous. The girls acknowledge the awkward situation, they make friendly jokes about it, and they have sympathy for each other. But at no point do they turn on each other. They probably never would have become friends if it weren't for this situation forcing them together. They're not the same type of person at all. But as the only two women there, it's wisest for them to band together. And they don't have any other choice, really. And I think it's really nice that they are friends and that they never fight over Tony or Rick. Ruby has some random acts of dancing, which are amusing, and at one point, while putting on a show, she even breaks the fourth wall. But despite her rough edges and brassy personality, she's a good egg, and a good addition to the group. She's the only one we see strike up a friendship with Pete. It's too bad she's so stuck on Tony, because she deserves better. Not that Tony is a jerk all the time. At one point, his behavior is actually pretty decent. It's short-lived, though. This is one of those movies where you find yourself urging the characters to eliminate the troublemaker. I wanted the dad to kill him, I wanted Rick to kill him, I wanted Ruby to kill him. The seventh party member is Radek, played by Paul Dubov. Radek is afflicted with a chunky radioactive burn that resembles a combination of battery acid and bird poop. Despite his protests, Rick carries him to the house, and after a period of recovery, he starts wandering around, craving raw meat and venturing into forbidden territory. This is worrying behavior to the other survivors, for a number of reasons. There's one other character they encounter, a contaminated man played by another Corman regular, Jonathan Hayes. That's Seymour from The Little Shop of Horrors, but I didn't recognize him through the makeup. Meanwhile, painter, sculptor, and visual effects artist Paul Blaisdell gets into the costume of his own making, assuming the role of the fabulously ugly mutant that traipses through the woods and spies on the girls while they're swimming. It's Louise who develops a sense of when this creature is lurking nearby, and she hears him calling to her from her window. This seems weird and random until you figure out the likely explanation, and then it gives the story a sad, bittersweet note. What made me realize what could be going on here was actually a continuity error. This framed photo appears on Louise's nightstand in one scene, and then it disappears, and then later she's shown going into the other room, getting it out, and setting it up on her nightstand. Whoops! I was thinking, the mistake spoiled the reveal. But then it never is revealed. The idea is never confirmed. It's just something we're left to speculate about. And I kind of like that they made the more subtle choice. If you pick up on it, then that will give the ending a little more poignancy for you. But if you don't pick up on it, the movie's not going to spell it out for you. By the way, I suspected that might be Corman himself in the photo, and it is. Gotta love the efficiency of the Corman cameo. The mutant, I don't know, is it a good monster design or a bad monster design? I lean toward good. It's rubbery and a bit ridiculous, especially that one horn that seems to flap a little bit whenever the creature takes a step or the wind blows. But it's creative, with the skin and the 3 eyes. I love the shriveled arms that have sprouted out of the shoulders. And if you're into the Doritos body shape, check out this specimen. There are 2 things I love to see or hear about a B-movie production like this. One is that the cast and crew gave it their all, that they made a sincere and professional effort despite the low budget or the dubious quality of the material, and I always want to applaud that. The other is that the cast and crew had fun during the production. And looking at these photos, I feel like it's safe to say these people had fun. On the one hand, this is an absurd depiction of a nuclear apocalypse. Everyone's hair is clean and coiffed, and the ladies look like they're ready for a summer picnic. An awful lot of time is spent on who gets Louise, while the mutant issue has a surprisingly quick and easy resolution. But I stand by my praise of this one. It's got a decent script, memorable visuals, a theremin-heavy score, an entertaining monster, and enough conflict between the characters to be engaging and keep things moving. Now, I have determined in the last couple years that my favorite Roger Corman movies from this period are Not of This Earth and A Bucket of Blood. Day the World Ended doesn't surpass either of those decidedly kooky movies, but I do consider it his most successful science fiction effort of the 1950s. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you've seen this movie, I'd love to hear what you think about it, so please share your take on it in the comments below, and I'll be back next weekend with another review. Thanks for watching. Bye!